Hey guys, welcome to our second Community Wednesday, and I want to say thank you to HaterXR for providing this week's question. I was asked on Instagram what the best Warzone lethal was, but objectively, there is no best. So with this video, I'm going to help you find which one is the best for you based on your playstyle. For the first lethal, we've got the Frag Grenade. In this clip, I bounce a grenade into the building in front of me in order to break someone's armor. Another lethal or even a gun would not have allowed me to do this, but the second grenade doesn't hit, which shows its flaw. The bouncy nature of the frag grenade makes it a bit random at times, and while this can sometimes be good, in this situation it was not. Here I come to assist a teammate dealing with a riot shield. My first grenade bounces and almost kills me, and the second grenade does end up downing the player. If I had a sticky though, I would have gotten him with the first hit. So what's good, bad, and what do I think about it? Well, a good thing about it is that it bounces, meaning you can bounce it off a wall or a ceiling, putting you out of harm's way when you use it. It's got precise detonation if you cook it correctly, so you can have it detonate right as it enters a window. Its cons are that it has a long cook or fuse time, meaning while you're cooking it, you're out of that gunfight. And if you decide to throw it without cooking very long, it's probably gonna give the enemies enough time to run away by the time it detonates. Another con is that it bounces. It's a pro and a con. Because it bounces, you don't exactly know where it's gonna end up when it blows up, so it's a bit random. My final thoughts on this are that it's a great tool when used by the right hands, and I don't really have the skill to use it, so unless you've got the skills to bounce grenades and do the perfect cook timing, use it. Otherwise, stay away from it, like I will. Next up is the C4, the old king of Warzone until it got its range nerf, where now you can barely throw it in front of you. You can try to get a little creative, just like I tried right there, but it doesn't guarantee that you're gonna get a kill. Because of its reduced throwing range, and because of its smaller than usual overall damage range, it is not the best at taking out players anymore. Especially when EOD comes into the picture, it's really not worth trying to use it against players. It does, however, take out most vehicles in one hit, except for the cargo truck, which takes 2. So against vehicles, it's one of the greatest pieces of equipment that you can use, but against players, not so much. And by now you can pretty much tell the pros and cons. It takes care of vehicles well, but you can't throw it very far. Next up is the Semtex. Stat-wise, it's just a sticky version of the Frag Grenade. It's got a pretty lengthy detonation time, so don't expect to be alive by the time it detonates. And just because you stick someone doesn't mean that they're gonna go down. When EOD and armor comes into play, you don't really know what's gonna happen. If you stick someone that's down though, that's pretty great because it guarantees the kill. The best way to use a Semtex though is when cover is involved. You can force somebody out of cover, or you can down someone where you get them low and they try to run behind cover, and yeah, you can technically finish someone when they're downed already behind cover. So the pros and cons. Basically, it's sticky and it works well with cover. But it's got a long detonation time, and because it's sticky, you have to be in direct line of sight of wherever you're throwing it at. Although I don't mention it, it's not the best to use against vehicles either, because even if you get a direct stick, it won't immediately disable the vehicle. So what do I have to say about it? Well, it's my favorite lethal in Warzone. It's specialized enough that I can use it in very niche situations, but it's versatile enough that I can use it whenever I would need an explosive usually. If you don't really know what type of lethal to bring, I highly recommend this one. Learn to use it well, and it will serve you in many, many ways. Next up is the throwing knife, probably the coolest throwable in the game. If the player has 2 armor plates or less, it'll instantly down them, but if they got full armor, it'll require 2. Because of its accuracy and velocity though, the best way to use it is to instantly take out downed enemies. And when you're done, you can pick it right back up. So the throwing knife, it's not the best directly offensive tool, but for hyper aggressive players, it's probably the best cleanup tool. The Molotov is really useful, although I personally wouldn't use it as a directly offensive tool because it does take a while for it to kill someone. If a player doesn't have EOD and you stick them, it will not just down them, but it will also take them out. Just like the Semtex, it works pretty well at taking out already downed enemies. Its true strength, however, lies with its ability to force enemies out of cover, or even better, prevent enemies from entering a room. Just because it's a giant pool of fire though, doesn't mean that the enemies won't try to go through it. Either they have EOD, or they really think that they can challenge you. So, what's good and bad? Well, it'll keep players out of a certain area for a short amount of time, and if you stick a player, the flame pool will stay exactly where you first hit that player. So if teammates try to stay in the same cover, it'll force them out too. Its cons though are that it deals pretty low damage. And because the flame pool won't follow the stuck players, it means that you are potentially missing out on some damage caused by the chaos. Lastly, while you can stick this on any surface, meaning walls and ceilings, it will only damage where basically the flames are visible, and its height is much shorter than the radius. So as long as you stick it on the floor, I say it's one of the greatest pieces of equipment you can bring, especially for those of you who like to do 10,000 IQ plays. Or, you know, if you need a few seconds to revive a teammate. So what happens when you combine the C4, the throwing knife, and the Molotov, but turn them down a tiny bit? That's where you get the Thermite. While you can throw it like a knife, and it does spread like a Molotov, it's got pretty low damage, so unless you stick them, you're not really guaranteed to finish someone that's downed. And even if you stick a player, if you end up downing them, it will not end up getting you the kill. The best way to use this is just like the Molotov, to either force someone out of cover, force someone to move, or just to keep someone out of a certain area. How is it like the C4 though? Well, if you stick a vehicle, it'll take it out, although it will take a little bit longer. The cargo truck though will require 3 instead of just 1. So what are the pros and cons? Well, it does basically everything a Molotov does, keeping players out of a certain area or forcing them to move. It does pretty decent vehicle damage, and it will stick to anything with the same radius, unlike the Molotov. It's got a really long throwing range, just like the throwing knife, and it will eventually down stuck players. And the damage source stays with these stuck players, so the teammates can't try to revive them. Its cons though are pretty obvious. I mean, it's dealing pretty low damage, so if you got EOD, you can pretty much ignore them. And because the damage source stays with stuck players, the players can just kind of crawl away and not harm their teammates. Hopefully by now, you've either learned something new about these lethals, or you've reassured yourself that the one you're using is the one that you want to use. If you want your topic covered on a Community Wednesday video, make sure to leave a comment on here or on Instagram. Private messages don't count. But if you enjoyed this video or it has taught you something new, please hit like. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below, and if you want to make sure that you never miss another video, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.